No Baker
what a
and
line.
another quiet game
Kyrie
from OBJ.
I like that.
That's a good little Kyrie
Get back to some hoops.
Rivers. That's funny.
Yeah, that is.
Yesterday, the NBA finished releasing their full 75th anniversary squad. Missing from that list, glaringly, I might add, Kyrie Irving. The 7-time All-Star still sidelined due to his vaccination status, but the resume he's built to this point, it's impressive. So here we go. Andre Iguodala chimed in yesterday, tweeting, so y'all saying Kyrie Irving ain't top 75? He's top 20 at least. Dragonfly Jones tweeted this: Kyrie really seems to be a Hooper's Hooper. I love Kyrie's game, but Hoopers love Kyrie's game. KD saw that and tweeted response, because you're a casual. All right, Nick, should Kyrie have made this list?
Yeah, I wanna hear Broussard first on this, because people are gonna think, because Broussard has tricked America into thinking I'm dripping in anything but objectivity. Whatever I say, people are gonna find some way to connect it to LeBron and a legacy. So I want to hear Broussard first on this, then I'll respond.
Well, first of all, they wouldn't be wrong for that, but I appreciate you giving me the floor, Nick. All right, look, let me explain. I'm going to do my best to try to explain Andre Iguodala and Kevin Durant, who are big-time hoop people. I don't mean just their game, but I mean, their love of critiquing players and so on and so forth. Obviously, it's ludicrous to say Kyrie is a top 20 player. But I think that they are guys that are looking at skills. And I think they look at it like Kyrie's got the best handle ever, which he does in the NBA. Kyrie is one of the best finishers ever for guard, which he is in the NBA, a point guard. Kyrie is a tremendous shooter, has three-point range that guys before him, back in the day never had. I think they're going to compare him to some of these older guys and just say, hey, you put them on the court right now, Bob Cousy then versus Kyrie, it's not even close. But it's disrespectful of the previous eras. Give a Bob Cousy or many other guys, Hal Greer, the benefits of today, the nutrition, the charter flights, the better sneakers, the weight training, the film study, the year-round play, and the ability to look and learn from predecessors that they didn't have, that today's players get. And Bob Cousy would be a star today. A superstar today. Same with Hal Greer and some of these other guys. So there's that. As far as top 75, I think there's an argument for Kyrie. I don't think he should have made the list, but I think there is an argument there. He was, you can put him on the snub list if you want. The problem with Kyrie, and Nick, you talked about this at length with Dwight. One of the problems is his image. I mean, people thought Dwight was a goofball. And Kyrie with the earth is flat and Christmas not a holiday and things like that. Not to mention what's going on now. His image is not good. But there's more than that. Injuries. He's only played 70 or more games 3 times in his career and missed 4 playoff either series or entire postseasons that were critical. Thirdly, he hasn't shown he can lead a team to significant winning when he's the number one guy. In Cleveland before LeBron, they're no good. Boston, we know they go further without him than they did with him. And even his first year in Brooklyn without KD, he was hurt, played 20 games. Not impressive as far as wins in those 20 games. All right, so, and then finally, not a big assist guy. All right, 5.7 assists for his career. So that is why you go Dame. Those are reasons you go Dame over Kyrie, because Dame is a little bit more of an assist guy. Dame has shown that while he can't lead you to a championship, he can lead you fairly deep in the playoffs occasionally. And so those are the reasons you pick a Dame over Kyrie. But, Nick, I don't think it's egregious to think Kyrie could have been top 75, but I think it's correct that he wasn't on it.
So I don't want to, like you kind of alluded to, I don't want to compare Kyrie to the older guys, because it's really apples and bowling balls there. And let's just talk about the contemporaries. And I get, by the way, why Andre Iguodala might be making this case. Andre Iguodala is like, well, Kyrie top 75, he's 210th on the NBA's all-time scoring list. I, Andre Iguodala, am 192nd. So if he makes the list, hey, some credit there maybe, huh? Could I get some consideration? Don't forget about my Denver years now. So here's the problem. The problem is, forget Dwight deserving to be on here. Other contemporaries of Kyrie who deserve to be on here far before him. Tracy McGrady. How about Tracy? Tracy twice finished top 5 in MVP voting and 7 times was All-NBA. Kyrie, 0 top 5 MVP finishes, more on that in a moment, and 3 times All-NBA. What about Tony Parker? Because I think if KD were here and he heard us bring up Tony Parker, he'd walk out of the room. Because obviously Kyrie is more skilled than Tony Parker. But Tony Parker has a top 5 MVP finish. He has more All-NBA teams than Kyrie. He has a Finals MVP. And oh yeah, he does have the 4 championships. Hey, Nikola Jokic, if we're not worried about length of work, just what was your peak, I wouldn't put Jokic on the list. But he did win a league MVP. And by the way, Bernard King not being on this list really, really bothers me. Bernard King, Sidney Moncrief, and Dwight Howard all should have made the list, but I'll set that aside. But I want to go back, Wilds. Here's the issue. If you haven't done it long enough, and by virtue of the fact that Kyrie is 210th on the all-time scoring list, we know he hasn't done it long enough. Then the question is, how high was your peak? And I think it's fair to question Kyrie's peak when, forget top 5 MVP finish. Would you believe if I told you, because it's true, he's never received a single MVP vote. So you've got a decade of work, 100 voters a year. They cast not the NFL where you just vote for first, you vote 1 through 5. In Kyrie's career, the following people, to name a few, have received at least 1 MVP vote. Joe Johnson, Ty Lawson, David Lee, Al Jefferson, Goran Dragic, Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, Little Isaiah Thomas, Victor Oladipo, Pascal Siakam, and Ben Simmons. They've all received at least 1 vote. Kyrie's never gotten 1 vote. So he hasn't played long enough. The peak isn't high enough. You can't make a case for him. I can't see it. And if you're going to make a case for him, Tracy McGrady is pounding on that door, and Tony Parker's pounding on that door. Vince Carter might be pounding on that door. It's hard to make a case for Kyrie that isn't a case for those other guys before him.
Okay, so I want to address the idea that Kyrie doesn't affect winning, because it's sort of, you have to hold these 2 ideas. That Kyrie, when you look at, Cavs pre-LeBron, you look at Celtics with and without Kyrie, but you also have one of the most clutch shots that we've ever seen in the NBA Finals to deliver LeBron a championship.
Right.
So having those 2 ideas in your head are kind of funky. You also have this idea, and I just want to address what you said about Bob Cousy, Broussard, because you are 100% right. And I have a little trick that I would like to give the audience on how to do this. I think greatness will transcend eras. So you have to assume that Bob Cousy, just like Broussard said, would be great in this era, even though it doesn't show up on film. Right. It's the same idea if we were talking about greatest producers. I'm sure Beethoven could produce an EDM track that would be pretty good. Beethoven right now would be one of the best EDM producers. He would be touring. He would be in Ibiza selling out like, oh, you got to see that new Beethoven. Yeah, I tripped Beethoven. Yeah, he brought Bach on earlier. Those guys would crush. It's the same way Bob Cousy would crush. But the question I have for you is this, Broussard. When you talk about affecting winning, a lot of guys on this list weren't the #1 guy. We saw #1 guys that didn't get it done get booted off the list. Like Vince Carter was the #1 guy, couldn't win. Tracy McGrady, as much as I love him, he didn't win, so I think he was penalized for that. But then you saw sort of second bananas get on the list. Robert Parrish is on the list. Dennis Rodman, who you wanted to boot off the list, has 5 championships because he's part of that team. Yeah. So, how do you think the balance is between Kyrie, who sort of bounces between both? Maybe he got his championship when he wasn't the #1 guy. Went to the Celtics, tried to be the #1 guy, actually wasn't. And now with the Nets, we're not quite sure what he is going to be because we haven't seen him on the court. So I think that sort of confusion about are you a supporting player, are you the star, kind of hurts Kyrie because there's just a gray area there.
Well, I think that's a great point, Wiles, and I want to address that. First, let me say this about Nick. The names you mentioned, Ty Lawson, some of these other guys that have gotten votes, Kyle Lowry for MVP, that's more of an indictment on some of the voters. I mean, real talk. Like,
oh, you don't
those
say.
dudes aren't as good as
Thank
Kyrie
you for
Irving.
walking into that.
I'm
You're
just
saying the MVP voting needs an overhaul.
Not me.
Maybe
I've
some
never
fresh
put,
blood.
I've never put
Okay.
Ty Lawson,
All right, my friend.
with all
Now
due
you're
respect,
speaking my language.
on my ballot. All right, no. So I had to say that. But
you
to
walked
Roz's
right into that
point,
bear trap. I was deciding
No,
which names to include.
I
I'm like,
don't
what are
have
the
Ty
most
Lawson on
egregious
one of my
to get
ballots.
started to rip the voters? All right, go ahead. Sorry. It just got me so excited.
But
go ahead, buddy.
This is something Kyrie, if this is important to him, may have to live with. Had he stayed in Cleveland Wilds with LeBron, he'd probably be on this list. Probably be on this
That's
list.
right.
Because he was the closer. And LeBron and his guys know that. There wasn't no Kyrie was the closer. And they may have won more championships. And then Kyrie would probably be a no-brainer on this list. All right? And now, Kyrie does have an opportunity, Wiles, to your point, to make this look foolish that he wasn't on the list. I don't think it's nearly as ridiculous as Nick has said for it to be considered that Kyrie could have been on the list. He's got time. And I say this in all seriousness, if he continues to play. Because I don't know what Kyrie's future holds. I mean, if he doesn't play this whole season and opts out of his deal, is there a team that's going to give him a long-term contract? I don't know with all the uncertainty about him. So if he continues to play, he's the third best player in Brooklyn. But if he continues to play and stays there and they win a championship or more,